all your service. I'm speaking to 23-0-1345, and I'm hoping there's a typo because it looks like it's 40,269,000 and a bit for bike lanes on Central. And this comes at the same time as the $1.6 million settlement. Hello. The $1.6 million settlement for the American for Disabilities Act plaintiffs. And I just can't imagine what that $1.6 million represents other than total disrespect for the ADA community. And I don't understand how the justice system works that would end up with that kind of a settlement. And I guess Councilmember Farokhi, you were with us on Roll a Mile on My Wheels in 2019. And during that event, we had a fleet of maybe 30 wheelchairs, some motorized, some regular, and we had City Council, Transportation Committee, and a few other officials just to experience a few blocks of Peachtree Street on the sidewalk outside the Shepherd Center. And as I look at $30 million to be spent on downtown streets when those sidewalks still haven't been addressed, and while the Transportation Committee has a study of sidewalk deficits in the city, and those are not being addressed as quickly and with as much investment as what's going on around the Capitol here and City Hall. So I just want to contrast $1.6 million for huge issues related to our ADA compliance and the $40+ million to be spent right around this neighborhood where not every block is having proper ADA access. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. I do think it's worth noting, and I defer to law, we don't have to get into it now, but the ADA compliance work will continue over multiple years, and there'll be much more investment than $1.6 million. So I just want to put that out there. I think that the framing will come out as DOT and law talk to us, but that's not a one and done $1.6 million, and the city somehow washed its hands of its ADA obligations. The settlement is, I think, a 25-year settlement that requires a significant amount of work to occur now going forward. We have, as a city, over $1 billion in sidewalk maintenance, repair, expansion needs. So, you know, our annual fund budget is what, $750 million or so. So we're going to have to find a lot of funding to catch up with where we need to be. But I know district members have been pouring money into sidewalks, and the administration and DOT have also put a renewed focus on sidewalk repair and maintenance. But we hear you loud and clear. I think ADA compliance is something the city has fallen behind on and rightfully was the subject of a lawsuit on. So we have work to do, but that $1.6 million is not a one-time, we're done with working on ADA compliance. Our next speaker is, I believe it's Ron Wilson.
Ron Wilson, how are you?
Morning.
I was here just to speak in support of an ordinance that's on the agenda, so I really don't have any public comments. I was going to be here just to support that.
Okay, do you want to tell us what piece of legislation it is?
It's 510 Fairburn Road. It's a development that we're involved in Southwest Atlanta.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll note I've been joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Keisha Sean-Waite and Councilmember Marcy Collier-Overstreet to my right. Our next speaker is DeJuan Robinson. He has had 2 other speakers yield time to him. Mr. Robinson will have 9 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank everybody that's here today. So we're here again talking about the airport issues and the investigation that's going on. And I'm asking you, Mr. Chair, when you see Mr. Bill Dory, our general manager, come up here, I would like for you guys to ask them to clear some questions up, because as you see, they brought these nice young folks here today to try to make you guys think they're doing some good in the community. You know, they got Miss Kelly Yamaguchi from AJC writing nice articles on them, and as we see, that it's far from the truth. And as you will see later on in these reports that's coming out, you know what I'm saying, this general manager and his deputy general manager, and let's note this today, Ja Farrell is not here once again, and I'm sure she's not going to be here while this investigation going on, where you guys can ask her this. But when the general manager come up here today, I ask that you not let him off the hook and ask those same tough questions, Ms. Overstreet, that you guys asked Marta. Mr. Warren, I know you guys and everybody are friendly with the airport staff. Hey, but I ask you guys not to play politics on this, because it's a tragedy what's going on. And the two young ladies, I'm not gonna say the two young ladies, the two bad apples that Mr. Bill Dory spoke about are in the crowd today. And you see they donated their time. They're not scared to come down here. So they're here today. So we need to get to the bottom of it. You know, like our grandma used to say, well, the rubber meets the road. Because I can assure you that once you see what these people are doing at the airport, not only do they need to be removed, man, we talking about silver bracelets might be placed on these people, man, what they doing out there. And it's disrespectful to you guys in the administration. We got a new mayor here that's trying, but we got folks at the airport don't give a darn out there that's doing whatever they want to do with no accountability. No accountability. And we cannot allow that, Mr. Farokhi. We are better than that. You know what I'm saying? We are better than that. And I'm positive that Maynard and everybody that came before Maynard, Ms. Norwood, Sam Massell, rolling over in their grave when you got people at the airport that feel that they're above reproach. And they come down here and tell y'all these fancy lies and report. Man, these innocent children, they bring it down here, showing off like they doing something. But we got folks in the neighborhoods in the impoverished area can't get an internship at the airport, can't get a job at the airport. They got a lot of employees. There's people out there, Ms. Norwood, that's making $100,000, $200,000. Got children out there working. If I make $200,000, my child don't need to take up space at the airport. They need to be somewhere else in the private sector. But this is what's going on, and you know, y'all see it and y'all smile and y'all take their word for what it is. But I can assure you, this not going away. And our general manager need to be held accountable. And why is Ja Farrell haven't been here in a month or two since this investigation has been going on? All this other staff is here, but she's not here. She came to y'all budget hearing in there, but why she's not here? Because it all starts with her. That 20-some million slush fund that she have, that marketing fund that pays for everything they doing. Now y'all ask them why they spending $20,000, $30,000 on festivals that had nothing to do with the airport, not bringing no money to the airport. But they spending this money with these 5K races. That ain't bringing no money to the airport. So they just shell out money to buy friends, buy support. So you guys want to ask them stuff, we got to stop that. And today is the day, because we got the two young ladies here that's been mistreated. Ms. Overstreet, when you and Ms. Boone felt that you guys were being mistreated, y'all went to AJC on Mr. Doug Shipman. You had no problems with doing that. Who's going to protect these two young ladies? Are we just going to allow them to just be mistreated like that and trampled down like that? Now, we know in certain cultures, men don't respect women. We know that and we understand that, but we're not going to accept that in Atlanta. Mr. Bill Dory need to know that he's in Atlanta. I went out to the airport for a meeting. Let me get this name straight, because this lady called the police, had me escorted out there because I attended a meeting that I was invited to. Her name is Mary Finch. She's like second in charge on the Tracy Harrison. Now, they made it where Tracy Harrison supposed to step down from ground transportation, put another gentleman in place, but she's still running ground transportation. I went to a meeting with taxi, and they called the police out there. And me and Chief Shearbaum, we having a meeting about that because they called 4 APD, 4 airport security, which they allowed to come, treated me like a terrorist. So I was criminally trespassing when I was escorted on the property for a meeting. They didn't want to have the meeting with me to deal with it. They called the police, and these folks you see in here today allowed them to do that. Now that could have got real ugly had I got out of character. But I'm just telling you that her name is Mary Finch for the record because she's watching. She came in the meeting and said, oh, I hear what you've been saying about my boss. But I can assure you once again, Tracy Harrison, ground transportation, used to come to the meeting just as well. You know what I'm saying? When she was fighting for everybody on MTI to get that contract, she was here every meeting. But since we've been speaking on it, the actors that are being in question have not been showing up. And once again, Ms. Norwood, Mr. Warren, you got about 50 employees out there that have not gone through federal background check, Mr. Faroki, are still getting let in by other employees out there because people in certain places are not being held accountable, and it's still going on out there. We can't do that. But you guys are allowing the airport that that's active, they're their own entity, don't have to answer to no one. Now, we understand they get FAA funds, but when you cross mingling funds with the city of Atlanta, and you just doing what you want to do, and when the daughter, Mr. Deputy, and her mom worked across the hall and got $38,000 to $40,000 worth of wallpaper in her office spent by airport money, and you guys sit here like you ain't never heard of it, you ain't seen it, well, we need to go over there and look at it and see it. We can't have that. When you got your general manager, now he probably can do that, but we need to look into that. This man got a world-class office with a $100,000 shower in there, a stand-in shower in there. They just spending money, they just doing what they want to do out there. Then this man don't work out to be having a $100,000 shower in there, Mr. Lord. Custom-made marble floor, y'all. This is Mr. Biodora's shower inside his office at the airport. Spent about $250,000 on it. They just doing what they want to do out there with the airport money. And we got to hold them accountable, Ms. Norwood. Nobody is above, approach. And Mr. Biodora and his staff gonna continue to come down here and dance and prance if they doing something good. They giving young folk jobs. That's what you're supposed to do. That's like me telling you I take care of my son and my daughter, my twins. I'm supposed to do that. We don't pat them on the back because they giving young folks jobs. But what about when they graduate high school? Can they get a decent paying job to live in Atlanta? As we all know that that's not true. Who is tracking that? Who is tracking that? Who is tracking the minority participation that's going on at the airport that's supposed to be 33%, which many have fought and dead and bled for? Who is tracking that? Can they show y'all that? They can give y'all the figures, but can they show y'all who's been awarded, what minority got the 33% or the 30%? They have not shown y'all that. They show y'all these big figures, but you guys need to ask, what minority is on that contract? Who's tracking it? Where is it going? Why did you guys really want these young ladies to resign? Why did Mr. Bill Dora go to the news and try to assassinate these young ladies in the paper? Over some candles? Mr. Bill Dora had a birthday party cost thousands. Ain't nobody asked him to pay it back, but you want a young lady to pay back $600 for a party y'all threw for her? But the Deputy General Manager, John Farrell, had a birthday party cost thousands. Nobody asking her to pay it back. So we can't pick and choose who we want to protect and stand on, Mr. Farouk. Thank you. You were gracious. Give me my 9 minutes, but I would like to please, when they come up here and we're standing for the duration, I want to see you guys ask Mr. Bill Dora and his staff these questions. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Curtis. Hi, Mr. Curtis. If you can, I don't know if we can lower the mic for you here, just so that when you speak, folks who are listening on TV or watching on TV can hear you.
Thank you very much for hearing me. Anyway, I just wanted to address the fact I live on PT Road at Hardest Senior Living Buckhead, and I've been a long-time volunteer at Shepherd Center, which is across the street. And anyway, when I moved to Hardest in February, I was returning home from Shepherd Center and the crosswalk, and anyway, a car struck me going 40 miles an hour. And anyway, I'm just very lucky to still be alive. But in the 20 years or so I've been volunteering at Shepherd Center, I have personally witnessed 6 people who have been struck by cars on Peachtree. And anyway, it is a hospital zone, and the speed limit needs to be reduced to 20 miles an hour because it is putting pedestrian lives in danger. It is just a travesty. I mean, how many more people need to be seriously hurt or possibly killed? I mean, before me, there was a lady who was a longtime employee of Shepherd Center, and she had taken the bus to work one morning, and a black BMW ran the red light, ran over her, left her lying there like a piece of trash on the road. And it has been 3+ years, and she cannot go back to work because her injuries sustained were so serious, she cannot work. I mean, who is gonna pay for her inconvenience? It is just ridiculous. I don't know why the crosswalks don't have, like at the Whole Foods on Northside Parkway. Somebody told me there are lights that come down whenever there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. I know we've been on some emails with Councilmember Norwood's office and DOT on some improvements the DOT is going to be working on. I'm hoping they can speak to that today when they come up to talk about whatever issues arise. But we hear you. We're glad that you're with us today. Thank you for coming down. I know you've been a long advocate for safety on that corridor, and we have new sidewalks through there, but the crossings are still very dangerous. So
Yes.
We look forward to working with you on that.
Because I also need to mention that, of course, the crosswalk button is broken, and I mean, who do you call to fix it? So, but thank you, sir.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge to my far right, Councilmember Antonio Lewis has joined us. I also want to acknowledge, I'm told we have a number of interns from the aviation department here today. If y'all could just stand and wave your hand, we're glad you're working at the city. Yeah. We hope you have a good summer experience and enjoy today's meeting and the back and forth that ensues at City Council committee meetings. So thank you for your time at the city. Let's see here. I have 2 colleagues who wish to speak. Ms. Norwood.
I just wanted to take a moment. Mr. Curtis is exactly right. That intersection at Peachtree Valley and Hardis, where it is a senior living facility on the eastern side. And also I wanted to mention, before we go further, that the Beltline is going to come through at Bennett Street. So the Beltline is going to be another big driver in access for wheelchairs, for walkers, for joggers. So as we look at getting that hospital zone safer for pedestrians, for wheelchair access, it's also going to be a huge connectivity right there. So all of that needs to be taken into account right now as we start fixing this, which needs to be done as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
I want to say, Mr. Robertson, I did hear you, and I will be asking some of these questions today. I also want to send a huge shout out to the interns from the airport. Every time I see these young folks in these blue shirts, they make me smile a little bit more. And so I'm inspired by y'all being here. I hope that you fully take in everything that this internship has to offer, and I also hope you save some coins on the side. Enjoy this internship. I started as an intern with the city of Atlanta, and now I'm a city council member. So I can see some of y'all on the other side of this dais one day. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next order of business is Section F, presentations, reports, and updates. Today, we are lucky to have with us the Atlanta Regional Commission CEO and Executive Director Anna Roach, who has a presentation. We have a deck that's been shared with us. I appreciate this, a short one. Our rule of thumb here is 15 minutes tops, and then we'll dive into questions if there are any. So thank you for being with us today.
There we go. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I really am delighted to be here today, so thank you for permitting me to have an audience with this committee. Thank you also to the committee members who are also here today. Before I dive in and make sure that I stick with your 15-minute rule, I do want to take a second to acknowledge the Atlanta representatives on the Board of Commissioners for the Atlanta Regional Commission. Mayor Dickens, of course, is making his presence felt for sure on our board. He has been engaged, and his insights are always helpful and appreciated. Councilmember Matt Westmoreland started with the Atlanta Regional Commission as a high school student in their MARC program, and we're delighted to see him elevate now to the City Council and also serve as a member of our board and a strong advocate for MARC as well. The citizen member on our board, Amal Naik, has been on and off our board for about 10 years now, depending on his role, but he serves as chair of our Strategic Relations Committee, which is the committee that I, pretty much have a speed dial to, and so appreciate his service there. And I see some familiar faces on this council committee that previously served on the Atlanta Regional Commission as well. I appreciate all of your service, Mr. Juan. So again, delighted to be here to talk a little bit about the Atlanta Regional Commission. The vision for the Atlanta Regional Commission is to create one great region. We adopted a new strategic framework earlier this year, and this vision speaks to the needs and wants and aspirations of the folks in Metro Atlanta, and we believe that our stakeholders can grab hold of this mission and see their communities reflected through it. Every day at the Atlanta region, we work to create one great region where everybody has an opportunity to flourish, where our economy and quality of life is second to none in the United States. For this discussion, I'm going to focus principally on transportation. As you'll see in a moment, we are conducting a major update of our Metropolitan Transportation Long-Range Plan. It is an exercise that we go through every year to update our 30-year plan. And we're in the middle of that update right now, which is principally why I'm here talking to you, as I've gone around to many of your sister communities to do the same, to encourage their participation. This plan holds the promise of shaping the city of Atlanta and other parts of our region for decades to come. And so it's critically important that we continue our conversation about its importance and to get the voice of this council, this committee, and your constituents represented in our update. Before diving into the specifics of the update, I do want to take a moment to talk about how the Atlanta Regional Commission is having an impact here in the city of Atlanta. For those of you who don't know, the Atlanta Regional Commission is one of 12 regional commissions across the state of Georgia. We were established by the Georgia Planning Act to help communities with their community planning. But since that time, as many of you know, the breadth of the Atlanta Regional Commission's responsibilities have extended far beyond just community planning. We are the federally designated metropolitan planning organization. We receive funding from Homeland Security for our UASI initiative. We're the workforce development board for several of our counties and also serve as the area agency on aging for 10 of our 11 member counties. And through those specific designations and roles and responsibilities that we have, here are just a couple of things that we're doing in the city of Atlanta. We've allocated over $335 million in federal and state funding for transportation projects across the city through 2025. This includes the very celebrated Summerhill BRT that just broke ground that we're very excited about. It also includes the improvement of streets and major thoroughfares throughout the city. We're also focused on creating multimodal connections on 15th Street in Midtown, as well as expanding the PATH Trail, which Councilmember Nord is very excited about and talks a lot about in her advocacy. That will allow direct access to the Lindbergh, Lenox, and Buckhead MARTA stations as well. In addition to transportation, many City of Atlanta residents are benefiting from our investments in senior services as well. We allocated $4 million to the Fulton County Department of Senior Services and $3 million to the DeKalb County Department of Senior Services. And through those county senior services agencies, City of Atlanta residents and seniors are being served. For many of you who know and interact with your seniors, these funds provide critical services like in-home meals, congregate meals. We also do in-home services, in-home care, and then most significantly, transportation services to medical appointments and key supermarket shopping and other services that our seniors really rely on to remain independent and participating in our communities. The last thing I want to mention is our LCI initiative. It's a favorite program of ours. Our most recent City of Atlanta investment is $200,000 last year for the West End CID. That program is going to be focused on multimodal transportation to connect the West End MARTA station, the West End Mall, to the surrounding neighborhoods in that corridor. We're really excited about all the redevelopment happening on the West End and think that this will complement those efforts. Altogether, since the beginning of the program, we've had 21 LCI studies here in the City of Atlanta. We're excited to continue to partner for many more in the future. I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes of why I am here today. We talked about ARC's designation as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the 20-county area reflected on that map. And in that capacity, we have responsibility for all of the long-range transportation and economic development planning for Metro Atlanta. And frankly, we have a three-pronged approach to that planning. First, we develop a long-range, 30-year regional transportation plan that serves as the blueprint for transportation and development across Metro Atlanta. But in addition to that long-range plan, every 4 years, as I mentioned, we take another look at that plan to make sure that nothing has happened that disrupts our assumptions that we made in the development of that plan. And again, our 4-year update is the year that we are in now. And the third component of our planning is our annual implementation. That's where the rubber meets the road, as it were, in terms of our investments. It's where we take our federal dollars through the Department of Transportation agencies at USDOT and invest them through our Transportation Improvement Plan in our communities across Metro Atlanta. Why does it matter and why should you care? Well, number one, any transportation project that is implemented by the City of Atlanta or any other jurisdiction in our 20-county region that has or desires to invest federal funds has to come through ARC. It has to be a part of the Atlanta Regional Commission's long-range plan. So that's why this matters. And I'd say the second reason why this matters is that over the 30-year course of this plan, ARC is responsible for allocating over $173 billion in transportation investments across the 20-county area. Now, that's not a number to sneeze at. It is a significant number, and we want to make sure that as we build these plans, they're not just the organization's plan, that they truly reflect the community's needs and what they want to see in terms of transportation and development in their communities. So again, the reason why I'm here today, one is to talk to you about the importance of your role in engaging your constituents in the update to the plan, and also to talk about the significance of the transportation investments that we have responsibility for at ARC. Again, we don't simply pick a project and fund it. Those projects are tied to our long-range plan, and they're really aimed at addressing bottlenecks across the city, improving safety. We've heard a lot this morning through public comment about safety in our communities. We also have that front of mind as we think about our investments long-term. And we also want to always foster the development of vibrant, walkable, livable centers through our investments. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like for the city of Atlanta in our 30-year plan, I'm going to give you just, again, a couple of investments. The long-range plan calls for about $6 billion over 57 projects inside the city of Atlanta through 2050. Those projects include improving the I-285 interchange at I-20 West, which is not just important as a regional location. I also live in Southwest Atlanta in the suburbs of Atlanta, and so that's an important interchange that I have to pass to get home every single day. It's a critical one, and all our constituents are sort of ready for it to be functioning in an efficient way in terms of their commute home. That project is aimed at addressing congestion, as well as the dangers at that intersection, especially for trucks driving that way. Transit, so the Campbellton Road BRT, the Clifton Road BRT, and the Atlanta streetcar expansion, and I also want to mention the redevelopment of the 5 Point Station, are all transit projects that are contemplated in this long-range plan. Now, ARC will be working with MARTA as well as the City of Atlanta officials to make sure that the sequencing of that plan is consistent with what is possible from MARTA's perspective and what's desired from the city's perspective, but we are in lockstep with both the city and MARTA in terms of making sure that we prioritize those investments as federal funds become available. ARC is also helping to complete the eastern half of the Atlanta Beltline Trail. The Atlanta Beltline has been wildly successful in this past year and in previous years in securing federal funding. ARC is also a close partner of the Atlanta Beltline. We view that as a transformational transportation project for Metro Atlanta, not just the city of Atlanta, and so we're committed to continued investments in the Beltline as well. So again, can't go through the entire laundry list of programs. Those were some of the highlights that are contemplated in the plan between now and 2050. You know, again, it's important for us to update the plan for several different reasons. I just want to highlight a couple of things that make this plan update so obviously important for us. Number one, as a region, we continue to grow. And I'm sure as representatives of the constituents of the city of Atlanta, you are feeling the pressures of those growths in your separate districts as well. ARC forecasts that Metro Atlanta will grow by 1.8 million people by 2050. 1.8 million people. Now, we welcome growth. It means that our region is successful, but if we don't plan carefully for that growth, it will be a disaster for our region. And in context, adding 1.8 million people to Metro Atlanta is pretty much like picking up all of Metro Nashville and dropping it in Metro Atlanta. That is a lot of people. We are ready for it because we're working with communities like the city of Atlanta to make sure we can plan for and accommodate that growth. Another important reason why this is the perfect timing for an update is technology in general. You know, we've had a certain level of adoption for electric vehicle infrastructure by itself. People are buying EV vehicles. And now we have the Biden administration that has these incredible goals for the implementation of EV infrastructure across the United States and here in Metro Atlanta. And so what we anticipate is that technology such as EV vehicles, such as ChatGPT, such as all the things you are reading about in any business journal, it's going to fundamentally change the way that we commute. It's going to change the way that we relate with each other in the region. And so it's time for us to update the plan and think about those things. And I can't let it pass without mentioning that since the last time we updated this plan, we had a global pandemic. And frankly, it has created a new normal for us here in Metro Atlanta and across the globe. And it is time for us certainly to look at our numbers and make sure that the assumptions we had for our long-range plan still ring through in light of our pandemic. Climate change is another reason why it's important for us to take a look at our plan again. Not just are we seeing more and more examples of that happening in our community, but quite frankly, this administration is pretty bent on making sure that this nation prepares and becomes resilient. And so in order to be competitive for federal grants, if we're not talking about climate change, your application for sure will be at the bottom of the pile as well. Which leads me to our final point, which is just ensuring that we are making sure that we're paying attention to the federal priorities for discretionary funding. That includes equity, it does include climate, like I mentioned before, and workforce development is another priority. So for all those reasons, the time is sort of ripe for us to take a look at this plan again. Not going to spend any time on this slide except to just mention that there is strategic alignment between our regional transportation plan and our goals for this region. And so we want to make sure that we are always thinking about the bigger picture. And again, not just thinking about projects that move people from point A to point B, but having a more global view of how we implement transportation dollars. How can you help us? Well, we are on a tour across this region to make sure that we get people to participate in the update for this plan. We are going to be conducting focus groups in your communities, and we'll do that through our community engagement folks at the Atlanta Regional Commission. But most importantly, the quickest way to give us input on what you will want to see in your community from a transportation standpoint is to take our survey. And so if I can call on you committee members to help socialize this survey with your constituents and encourage them and give us their voice, that would be extremely, extremely helpful. And in closing today, I just want to emphasize that we are dedicated to a committed partnership, long-range partnership with the elected officials and the city of Atlanta. Of course, you all are our namesake at the Atlanta Regional Commission, so that partnership is critical. You can stay in touch regarding your transportation questions and needs, certainly by contacting me directly, but Solomon and Michelle, who work with the city of Atlanta, the commissioner, they both represent the city of Atlanta on our transportation coordinating committee, and so they're also very versed on the things that we're doing to partner and invest in the city of Atlanta as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, again for allowing me to have this audience with you. Before I take questions at your pleasure, I'd like to introduce John Orr, who many of you know. He's our long-standing leader in the transportation department at the ARC, and he will help me answer any of your specific project-related questions as well. I'm so fortunate to have him be my right hand. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Thank you both for being here, for taking the time to present to us. We're grateful for that.
Yes, sir.
We are, I think, probably like all of our peer jurisdictions in the metro area, sometimes we think we're the center of the universe, but the city of Atlanta is 10% or less of the regional population, and we're part of an interconnected community, so we appreciate your perspective and the work the ARC does, whether it's around aging or transportation. It's critical to the region's success. Councilor Norwood.
Yes, what are the dates of the survey? When does it close down? When is it online?
Thank you, Councilwoman Norwood. The survey is already open and it's already on the ARC website. I know that our plan is due in draft form to our board in December, and so we're going to be looking to wrap up things sometime in October. But John, is there a date that the survey will cut off? August 31st. Thank you. August 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Ms. Roach, for today. I appreciate this presentation.
Absolutely, sir.
I'm always happy to hear from the ARC because you always talking about the federal funding, and my ears are always open.
Yes, sir.
The One issue I've been yelling from here is about Metropolitan Parkway. Metropolitan Parkway is the worst road in the state of Georgia. It's a state-owned road, so we've been able to kick the can to the other person all the time. The high-rises have made my counterpart, who represents Northside Drive, say when he rides down it, he sees like the bumps like no other. And so my request is, if over the next plan, the next 30 years, if every time we say Northside Drive, we say Metropolitan Parkway, because they're the same street. And I know traditionally we've treated them differently, but with your leadership, and I'm seeing the interest and the intent. I watched you didn't read from a paper. I saw you know the work. And so if we can treat Metropolitan for the next 30, 40 years, because the growth over there is 4 cities that touch it, like Hateville, East Point, City of Atlanta. It goes to the airport. If we can treat Metropolitan Parkway like Northside Drive, so every time we say it, because it's the same street, let's always remember it's the same street. And so when the dome gets, I don't care what they get in other parts of the city, I want whatever the dome is getting. Whatever they're gonna put in front of the Mercedes-Benz, I want them to do to Metropolitan Parkway. So if you can if you can try to equate the 2 streets, that's my request.
Oh my goodness, I love those comments and I love those thoughts. And again, I remember I'm a part of that Southwest Atlanta community, and I think Metropolitan Parkway, I think the closest point is about 3.6 miles away from our home, so that my home. So that resonates with me, not just in my position as the CEO for the Atlanta Regional Commission, but because I want Metro Atlanta to be a place that my children can stay and live and be proud of as well. And so I want you to know that I heard what you said, and I want you to know that I am listening. We have a huge focus on everything south of I-20 now, because again, the federal government is forcing our hand to make sure that we are focused on previously underinvested communities. So I will absolutely take your words to heart, but I also want to give John an opportunity to talk about any projects specifically that he's aware of that could be addressing some of the concerns that you talked about as well.
And I want what Northside got, if you're gonna do it like that. I know the city, we've done a quick fix. We've done a quick fix in which we're spending our own funds to, we got a good mayor and a good Mr. Solomon Cavanagh. They came into the Department of Transportation. We're doing a quick fix in which we're spending our own funding to repave Metropolitan Parkway with the hopes that the state pays us back. But if we get because I see the interest and I see the investment below I-20, but if you say Northside Drive and Metropolitan Parkway in the same sentence, they'll get the same kind of resources. So I appreciate you, and I'm watching you do it, but I just want Metropolitan to get what Northside got.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Roach, you know I'm a big fan of the Atlanta Regional Commission and really support the work that you do. I think it's important to have that kind of region-wide lens in terms of all the trends and initiatives that will impact our area, and I like the way you framed it. It's not just now, it's for future generations as well. It's really, and it's not because you have a great picture of District 6 on the cover of your presentation, so just wanted to call that out as well.
Yes,
but I did want to at least just remind everybody that I think you've talked a lot about the investment opportunities that y'all have in terms of advancing projects and supporting initiatives, but I think equally important, in my opinion, in terms of your toolbox to drive this conversation is your review process as well. I mean, I think the DRI initiatives and how you look at transportation impact, I think we've got to lean into that as well. It's just as important for us to move things forward as it is for us to sometimes say no, because we can't support a project as it's designed. And more importantly, I think those no's inform us collectively as partners what we need to do in order to get to yes. So what investments do we need to make in transportation infrastructure? How forward-thinking should we be in terms of ambitious projects, rail or other ways, BRT, ways of moving people across the city in order to be able to get to yes. So I don't want us to lose sight of that because, again, those tend to be almost better learning opportunities and drivers of advancement than simply giving money to a project. So I just wanted to underscore that before we moved on.
Absolutely. And Mr. Chairman, I did not plant him to say that, but that is one of my favorite things to talk about is the fact that we do have the ability to review projects. And that's where things like the preservation of natural resources gets discussed, right? It's where we can emphasize the mission that we have to make sure that even as we grow and develop and prosper as a region, that we are still focused on safety, we're still focused on equity, and we're still working on the preservation of natural resources as we look at these development projects.
Mr. Amos.
Yes, ma'am. Very quickly, what is the process for revisiting LCI projects that are plans that are already put together, specifically the 2009 Vine City Washington Park LCI?
John, you want to answer that?
Yes, happy to. Well, first of all, like we each year open up application cycles for people to submit applications to update their LCI plans. Typically, that's going to happen in the fourth quarter and first quarter of every calendar year. So highly encourage if you feel like that there's some updates that need to be made, we're happy to respond to that.
So it's a process initiated by an application on the website, or?
Yes, absolutely. That's the precise case is that we'll accept in applications and then make recommendations. Typically, those are going to be on the first quarter of each calendar year. I'm happy to follow up more with the details on that.
And that has to be done by a specific agency, or can a resident do it, or?
Well, normally we do like to have like a local government support for the sponsor of the project, but we have worked with CIDs and cities, of course, others as well in submitting those. But I'm happy to follow up with a little bit more detail on that.
Okay, so we can just fill it out and I have it sitting on your desk, so when it opens up, we can go ahead and put it in the process.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Norwood.
Yeah, I was part of an LCI application which was not granted last year. Can we reapply with the same application? Do we need to submit a new application? This is for transportation where there is not the connectivity, and we very much are the backbone of commuters coming into our part of the city with 15 to 20,000 cars a day on two-lane neighborhood roads. So the LCI grant was to look at commuter buses, to look at alternative ways that people can get to their jobs. And we did that with Livable Buckhead and the Buckhead CID Coalition, Buckhead Council of Neighborhoods. So I'd love to have it approved this year because we have not had a transportation plan with all of the changes at City Hall that has come to fruition. And LCI doing that would be fantastic.
Yes, what I would suggest we do is like schedule a follow-up meeting to go through the prior application with myself and my colleague Sam Shimbaga, who managed the Community Development Department, and let's talk through it and see if there may be some tweaks needed as part of it for this cycle. So
Wonderful.
Happy to do that.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you again for your time and the presentation today. We appreciate the dialogue, and we'll welcome you back in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move now to legislative items that are before us today. Item G was an intended public hearing item, though we are going to hold that for one cycle and reschedule it for August 16th so that we can properly notice it. So I'll move to hold item 1 under G, the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, may I sign the item?
Absolutely.
Item number 1, 23-01323, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to abandon portions of a public street known as Old Jonesboro Road, consisting of approximately 0.423 acres lying and being in land lot 65 of the 14th District of Fulton County, Georgia, being more specifically described in the attached Exhibit A to 3799 Browns Mill LLC, authorizing the mayor as designee to execute a quitclaim deed for such abandoned right-of-way and for other purposes.
Motion to hold. Second by Amos. Please open the vote.
vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The item is held in committee.
Okay. Section H, communications.
Item number 2, 23C 5077, a communication from Councilmembers Jason Winston, District 1, Amir Faroki, District 2, Byron D. Amos, District 3, Jason Dozier, District 4, and Michael Julian Bond, Post 1 at large, appointing Ms. Judy Byrd to serve as a member of the Stakeholder Oversight Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years.
Ms. Byrd, are you with us today? Please come forward and share briefly a little bit about your background and why you're interested in serving on this committee.
Councilman Lewis, I have to read from them. Okay, thank you. I'm echoing here. Hello, I'm Judy Byrd. I live in Council District 3, MPUE, and I've owned my home and home park for over 22 years. I'm a retired CPA and have chosen to spend my retirement years giving back to my community with service. I am and have been on the HPCIA Home Park Board of Directors for many of my 22 years living in the community. I am known in my community as being persistent, never giving up, which I realize can be good and can be bad. I love the city of Atlanta, imperfections and all, along with all its greatness. I am passionate about the safety of my fellow citizens, which includes our transportation that moves us from point A to point B as pedestrians, cyclists, and or in our vehicles. I spent many years of my career working for major real estate firms in Atlanta in the accounting financial area. I am a law-abiding citizen. I believe in transparency and accountability and the numbers that represent financial activities of an organization, whether it be private, public, or government entity. I appreciate the nomination by my council member, Byron Amos, for this position and will not let him down if I am chosen to be a participant of this 15-member Stakeholder Advisory Committee to represent the interest of residents, including me, in the Moving Atlanta Forward initiative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd. Mr. Amos.
Yes, just want to say to Ms. Byrd, thank you for accepting the appointee, and also to ADOT and ARC. If you really want to know how to fix 10th Street, talk to Ms. Byrd. Motion to approve.
This motion to approve by Amos, second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd, for your willingness to serve.
Text takes to Section I, ordinance for first reading. Item number 3, 23-01380, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority to execute all documents necessary to acquire certain property rights and interests necessary for the expansion of MARTA's rapid transit system by construction, improvement, maintenance, and operation of the Cleveland Avenue Metropolitan Parkway Arterial Rapid Transit Project, authorizing the city attorney to perform all actions necessary to effectuate acquisitions, and in the event that acquisitions are unsuccessful, to initiate condemnation proceedings pursuant to Georgia Code Section 32-3-1, waiving certain provisions of Article 10 Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes. Item number 4, 23-01381, an ordinance by Transportation Committee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to correct Ordinance 22-01369 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on May 16, 2022, and approved by the mayor on May 23, 2022, which created the Moving Atlanta Forward Stakeholder Oversight Committee, among other purposes, by including additional information required by City Charter Section 3-401.2, subsection A4, which specifies the information that must be included in legislation creating a board, authority, commission, or a similar body. All other parts of the legislation were to remain unchanged and for other purposes. Item number 5, 23-01382, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor's designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to abandon a portion of a public right-of-way located adjacent to the intersection of West Haven Drive and Rosemary Avenue, consisting of approximately 0.150 acres lying and being in land lot 150 of the 14th District of Fulton County, Georgia, being more specifically described in attached Exhibit A to Amy Colwaite, authorizing the mayor as designee to execute a quitclaim deed for such abandoned right-of-way and for other purposes. Item number 6, 23-01383, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or designate on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to amend ordinance 22-0-1444 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on June 21st, 2022, and approved by the operation of law on June 29th, 2022, for the purpose of adding additional parcels listed in Exhibit B and for other purposes. This takes us to our regular agenda, Section J, ordinance for second reading. Item number 7, 23-0-1345, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept grant funds from the United States Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration and amend the FY 2024 Intergovernmental Grant Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in an amount not to exceed $30 million and 0 cents for the funding of the implementation Central and Prior Safe Streets project to allocate funds for the local match of $10 million, $10,269,338.0 from the Atlanta Department of Transportation's budget, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into any necessary agreements with the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration for grant acceptance and participation and for other purposes.
Is Ms. Anderson here to speak on this paper from the city?
Good morning, everybody. Marcia Anderson Beaumont.
Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. Channeling Commissioner Cavanis for you this morning. As you may remember, a couple of months ago, we did have Senator Ossoff here for a press conference where the city was the recipient of a $30 million grant from the federal government. It does require the matching amount, which had been anticipated and was built into our budget, so the funds are fully available. And this legislation is being brought to you today for the purpose of allowing us to actually start the process of accepting those funds, doing all the legal documentation, paperwork to accept those funds.
Ms. Norwood.
This is the same area. It's not the legislation that's before us, but I want to take this opportunity real quickly to say that in the repaving of the downtown streets, when you get off at MLK and you cross Piedmont going up to the Capitol, the striping is wrong. It absolutely throws people into the wrong lane. I sent a message to Paul Denard yesterday, but I want to say on camera, please have someone go look at how the cars are shifted right and then have no way to shift back left to be able to take a left-hand turn onto Washington. So while y'all are there, please have somebody check on that.
We'll certainly take a look at that. That's the way that I come to work, and I've not struggled with the transition, but we will go back and take a look at that again.
Mr. Lewis.
And so I'm extremely excited about this. As y'all know, I take Pryor Road to Central. Polar Rock Road turns to Pryor Road, which turns to Central. I live off Polar Rock Road on my Segway every day to work. So this will be protecting me.
You'll be a lot safer, yes.
A lot safer. So I want to also move to amend and add my name, since a lot of this is actually in District 12 as well. I'm extremely excited about this, and I'm excited to see the young folks who are going to be going to Slater Elementary, Price Middle, and Carver High, who will now have these pretty bike lanes that'll be able to take them downtown and to the belt line really fast. So motion to add my name and amend.
All right, so Councilor Lewis wants to amend the paper to add his name to the caption. Anyone else want to add their name to the caption? Yeah. And Councilor Waits?
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to amend as articulated.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is amended.
Great, I'll move to approve. Second by Amos. Did each one speak? Mr. Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to confirm that the matching funds I see are coming from the 2022 T-SPLOST, but was it a specific project? The allocation was already in there. Is that the 230 Prior Street and Central Ave Safe Street?
Yes, the allocation was already in there.
Okay, and does this fully deplete that in terms of that balance?
Yes, it's fully accounted.
Thank you.
Dollars.
Great. We have a motion by Faroki, second by Amos. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable as amended. Item number 8, 23-01349, an ordinance by Councilmember Howard Shook, authorizing the abandonment of a portion of Pine Tree Road, also known as Old Pine Tree Road, consisting of approximately 0.42 acres, lying and being more specifically described in attached Exhibit A, lying and being in land lot 1585 of Fulton County, Georgia, authorizing the mayor as needed to execute a quitclaim deed to the Georgia Department of Transportation for such abandoned right-of-way, waiving certain provisions of the Code of Ordinances and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, this item will need to be held for a public hearing.
All right, I'll move to hold it. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held in committee. Item number 9, 23-01350, an ordinance by Councilmember Howard Shook, authorizing the mayor as designee to waive the sidewalk requirements of Section 15-09.003 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to provide that certain subdivision SD 2112, 1 Emma Lane applicant deposit a dollar amount of $3,353.45 equal to the value of the required sidewalk construction into a designated trust fund account for District 7 and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, this item will need to be amended. The amendment changes the Department from Department of Public Works to ATL DOT in Section 2 of the legislation.
Yeah, I'll move to amend as stated. Second by Juan. Please open the vote on motion to amend.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is amended.
Mr. Smith.
Good morning, council members. Alan Smith, ATL DOT Deputy Commissioner, 10th Division. We support this legislation.
I'll move to approve as amended by Juan, a second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended. Item number 10, 23-01352, an ordinance by Councilmember Mary Norwood to allow a sidewalk waiver issued by the Director of Office of Zoning and Development per Section 16-06-011, subsection 6 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances for application is listed herein, 10 Blackland Road, Northwest Atlanta, Georgia, 30305, and for other purposes.
Move to approve. This will clarify that this particular tract of land is not appropriate for a sidewalk because it is a storage facility, and because the topography of the hilly terrain, there are no sidewalks to connect it anywhere to the neighborhood, nor would you come across this big piece, this big track to go anywhere. The neighborhood approved the rezoning because we had such terrific stormwater issues coming off of the central business district from the ridge line down into the valley, which is part of this street.
We have a motion to approve by Norwood, a second by Overstreet. Please open the vote. Mr. Juan.
Am I reading the staff notes right, that law wants to hold this? Is that the wrong one, or is there? I just want to understand if that is the case, the rationale, before we take a vote.
Law and I talked yesterday. It is my intent that between now and 3 weeks from now, when we have council meeting, that the Department of Transportation and the Department of Planning will have resolved this, and we'll file the paper on the 7th of August. But while I'm going to be 12 hours away from the city, I would like something on the record that everyone is in agreement that this is what should happen, whether legislatively or by department understanding.
Sure, I definitely respect the district councilperson, but I just do want to hear the rationale from law.
Good morning, Stephanie Grant, City of Atlanta Law Department. It is correct that the staff notes reflected that law had requested the paper to be held. However, Ms. Norwood is correct that we have had communications. The actual sidewalk waiver has previously been granted by the Director of Zoning, and so it was our original opinion that the ordinance was not the resolution was not necessary. However, as Ms. Norwood has stated, we will work within ATL-DOT and zoning to get the particulars worked out, and then, we are okay with this paper passing at this point on the condition that it will be filed at full council, first opportunity.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So should the motion be on condition then? I mean, if we're basically conditioning it for an action on the 7th, is that the more proper path? I guess I'm asking the district council member.
I think that's fine, Mr. Wan. What I wanted to do was to have something that I can direct to the property owner, to the NPU board. There has been a great deal of confusion, and so my goal was just to have this effective, assuming we actually pass it on the 7th of August. So between now and the 7th of August, law and planning and ATL-DOT are going to get together and resolve this as an administrative function, not as a legislative function. But we're going to be gone for 3 weeks, and I didn't want any confusion on a very important piece of property in my own neighborhood.
Yeah, I get it. I just wonder if we need to attach that condition onto the motion just to, again, get yet another hook in this to make sure that action that you're looking to have the departments do actually takes place before the 7th. So with that, I'll go ahead and add, I'll do a substitute motion to approve as on condition with that condition, just to make sure. Thanks.
So the substitute motion before us, Mr. Norwood, if you agree with that substitute motion, I would ask that you second it.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Lewis.
And my question was to law, but also, what's the difference between this sidewalk wallpaper and the one in 7 that we just passed and we had no discussion on?
Councilmember Lewis, the paper before us actually waives a different section of the city code. This waives the zoning and development code, and the particular the waiver itself required a specific action from both zoning and ATL-DOT, whereas the previous one only just required a recommendation from ATL-DOT.
I support the district council member.
So again, we have a motion to move forward on condition by Juan, a second by Norwood. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable on condition.
Yep. Let the record show that Councilor Norwood fought the law and won.
That is a real misrepresentation, Mr. Chair. Councilwoman Norwood worked with the law department, the planning department, and ATL-DOT, and we are all in lockstep together, and I am very grateful for such wise counsel from our law department.
Yeah, there's at least one politician among us. So, yeah.
Item number 11-23-0-1366, an ordinance by Councilmember Amir Faroki to extend the due date by which City Council must adopt the preliminary plan for the Move in Atlanta Forward Infrastructure Initiative City Council discretionary accounts per ordinance 22-0-1369 and for other purposes.
Mr. Moore.
Greg Moore, ATL Deputy Commissioner, Capital Delivery Division. The department is in support of this. I have been able to successfully meet with the majority of council to identify projects to meet this document for identifying projects for the Moving Atlanta Forward program. I only have 3 council members left to meet with, and those are largely coordinated and scheduled meetings. So
They're on the books. You're working.
Yes,
okay, terrific. I'll move to approve this paper. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. This takes us to Section K resolutions. Item number 12-23R-3813, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone requesting the Atlanta Department of Transportation to install a "Don't Block the Box" sign on 510 Fairburn Road Southwest and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith, yeah.
Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT, Tim Division. The department supports this legislation.
Mr. Juan.
I guess my question, how quickly can this be installed once we approve it and the mayor signs it and all that? I'm just curious what that window looks like.
Typically, about 4 weeks.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll move to approve. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Takes us to item number 13, 23R 3815, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Lewis expressing intent to change Confederate street names in the city of Atlanta based on recommendations received from the Advisory Committee on the City of Atlanta street names and monuments associated with the Confederacy pursuant to Resolution 17R 4089 and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith, any comment on this one? No comment. Mr. Lewis, you have any comment on this one?
Every time I ride down Forest Hill Drive or turn a left on Stonewall Tail Road, I'm thinking about the changes. Every time I'm in Rebel Valley Forest with 2 R's, I'm thinking about like things I shouldn't be thinking about. So I'm extremely excited to see this paper come forth. I hope that I have the support of my council members. Hank Aaron New Beginnings Academy sits on Forest Hill Road. Hosea Feeds the Hungry, Hosea Help sits on Forest Hill Drive. And so just to think, we're sending our kids to Hank Aaron New Beginnings and they know the name of that street no matter what. The name of the street school used to be Forest Hill Academy. And so I'm afraid that one day they might make a mistake and rename it Forest Hill Academy and rename Hosea Helps Forest Hill Helps. And so I need this paper to pass. As a native Atlantan, I hope that my council members stand with me as a person who's had to walk on these streets for a lifetime. I'm sick of them. And so I hope I have the support of my council members on this. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion?
I move that we approve this legislation.
Mr. Juan.
I'll second the motion. I just want to clarify, though. I mean, the actual renamings are going to require separate pieces of legislation in terms of ordinances and public hearings and all that, right? So that process. This just signals our intent that we want to start moving forward on the recommendations, which I think is a good thing for us to do.
You're absolutely
Okay.
correct, council member. Exactly everything that you said. This signals your intent to move forward. There are some specific requirements in the legislation on how to move forward. And then once the decisions are made to rename the streets, we will have to follow the public hearing process.
All right, very good. My second still holds. Godspeed for us, the implementation.
And just to be clear, the legislation references the streets that the 2017 work identified as being named after Confederate individuals, but it does not suggest what the new names would be. That's through later process, community engagement, et cetera.
That is correct. That's what the paper contemplates, to have all that community engagement process, then led by council, decide on the names of the streets, and then submit them forward to ATL DOT.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
And I support the work that was done in 2017 so much so. I know the intentions of the council folks in 2017 was to make this right. I just want to get it going. So I'm extremely excited about this. And this is just to basically make sure that we get it going. So thank you.
So motion by Lewis, second by Juan. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 14, 23R 3817, a resolution by Councilmember Liliana Battiari requesting the mayor as designee to make the intersection of Wesley Avenue Northeast and Foot Street Northeast an all-way stop control intersection, to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation to install stop signs at the intersection and for other purposes.
Alan Smith, ATL Deputy Commissioner, Tim Division. The department supports this legislation.
If they all move to approve. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Item number 1523R 3820, a resolution by Councilmember Amir Faroki requesting the mayor as designee to install traffic calming devices on Felton Drive Northeast between Angier Avenue Northeast and Ralph Miguel Boulevard Northeast and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith.
I'm getting a workout today.
Yeah. You learned to sit in the front finally. You used to sit in the back, and I questioned your, yeah.
Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT, Tim Division. The department supports this legislation.
Great. Right answer is my paper. I move to approve. Yeah. Second by Lewis. Sorry. Yeah.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Item number 1623R 3841, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing its task order funding amount not to exceed $1 million and 0 cents for use under FC 10322 on-call comprehensive environmental services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with environmental solutions for the airport joint venture comprised of ACOM Technical Services Incorporated and Edwards Pittman Environmental Incorporated. For the Department of Aviation on a task order basis, all services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Sister Cox member, BB Adari, Airport General Manager. Mr. Chairman, thank you for recognizing the high school intern behind me here. There are just a handful of the 165 that we hired for this summer. And Councilmember Lewis, thank you for your word of wisdom. I too hope that a couple of them will choose the profession of public service to serve our great nation. Thank you all very much. All the rest of your city council member receive a lot of feedback from you all on what we're doing here at the airport in support of our great mayor, Mayor Andre Dickens' Year of the Youth program. So thank you all very much. This paper is to add money to this contract for its for this fiscal year 24. I recommend approval of this paper.
I will move to approve. Second by Councilmember Lewis. Before we vote, I want to turn to Councilmember Waits, who has her speaker button pressed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions are germane to the long wait times at the City of Atlanta Airport. So is this the appropriate time?
Go for it.
Okay, perfect. So you indicated that we have returned to pre-pandemic numbers in terms of the airport volume. And I guess my question is, are there any changes from DOA that we can make to allow services like digital ID, pre-check, clear, to make the process more efficient for those that are waiting? When you visit areas like JFK, CDG in Paris, it's much more efficient. You don't see the long wait times that we have here in Atlanta. So the next question also is DOA actively engaging each of these to make the passenger security experience more pleasant and efficient?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Waits. So we have been actively engaged in this for over a decade. And so Atlanta Airport we have digital ID, we have Clear, we have Clear pre-check, we have pre-check, we have global entry, we got standard passenger, we have ADA, specialized lane for passenger with ADA and strollers. And we also have special lanes for our military veterans and active duty members. So we have a number of different classifications that we use. The problem is not the number of classifications. The problem is the number of people that is showing up at the airport all at the same time. So if you look at our stat, and I briefed this a couple of weeks ago, between the hours of 5 a.m. and 8 a.m., the TSA would have screened over 30,000 departing passengers at the capacity we have at the airport. So a lot of people who are flying at the 10 o'clock, 9, 10, and 11 o'clock hours are showing up at the 5, 6, and 7 o'clock hours, just clogging our system. And we are pushing communication out here, trying to inform the general public. Show up just 2 hours before your departure time and not 4 or 6 hours. We will get you through.
And the next question is, this committee also recently approved plans for Clear's expansion into the international terminal, and it was approved by the full council, I think, May 1st. Can you provide any updates on when that will occur?
The expansion of the
Clear. into the international terminal?
That is already in the works, so we are moving forward to implement Clear Pre-Check. I think it's either this week or in the next couple of weeks we will be implementing the Clear procedure at International.
Final question, Mr. Chairman. So I recently met with the representatives from Clear and learned that the airport's plan is to move their operation, the lower checkpoint area, is to move it. So are you concerned that this will impact the already strained passenger relationship that we have in terms of moving them from the existing domestic terminal right now?
Councilmember, I'm not concerned one bit at all. As a matter of fact, that operations plans have already been implemented. That move have already been completed. It's a dedicated space. It's giving those passengers dedicated lines for process. The problem with where they're right now, we have so many different classifications of passenger that is causing a safety concern. The fire marshal, the law enforcement agencies are all concerned. I am concerned about the congestion and the cross traffic that is going on in that area, especially right across from Delta. Very, very busy check-in counters.
So I know that there are plans to do construction, and this would somehow impact Clear. Have we discussed any partnership opportunities with Clear so that we can ease any challenges that we may have in addition to the strain of the passenger relationship in terms of creating longer lines?
All of Clear executive have been involved in this discussion. This is not done in a myopic way. This is done in a collaborative way. So we engage all our stakeholder who has a stay or an impact to the operations that we're running out here.
Thank you, sir. Can we chat offline?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, I will note that if there's any questions about personnel items at the airport, we'll have to move into executive session, but the floor is yours.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Mr. Amos.
Yes. More information about the moving of Clear. You know, I used to work at the airport, so we're moving Clear down to where the old American baggage claim used to be, the employee screening checkpoint?
Correct.
And so we're screening regular passengers, and how are we getting them back are we bringing them back up to go through security, or they're going through security there? Because that's ramp level at that point.
No. So when they clear security, they take an elevator or escalator up to the boarding level, and they could go onwards to any of the concourses.
So they go through the entire screening process there, and then on to
that
the
affirmative. One is a one-stop shopping. We don't, because if you do the verification there, then you have to bring them back. It will be literally an operational nightmare for us.
Okay, and not to prolong the meeting, but I could talk to your GMs offline. I mean, we have had concessions issues, now Clear, and parking. Which one of your GMs over those three different areas?
So when you said about issue, are you talking about operational issue? Are you talking about policy issue? Or are you talking about capacity constraint issues?
Well, I mean, all, I guess. I mean, as we talk about parking and moving people and quality experience at the airport, I know we have GMs that handle those different areas.
So my DGM for operations can address the Clear issue. That's an operational issue. Parking and concession fall under my DGM of commercial.
Okay, who are they?
Jai Farrell is commercial. Jan Lennon is operations.
Oh, yeah. I know Jan. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lewis.
Two things. So on May 1st, we passed legislation to move Clear to International Terminal. I know the next time we meet, this committee will meet, will be August. How close are we to actually moving Clear over there?
Michael, could you check? I think we are already in the process of implementing that. Remember, it's just not an airport says, okay, Clear, pick yourself up and move over to international. We have to have the approval of the Transportation Security Administration, because that checkpoint is there, it's federal property. So they have to look at we have to do an amendment to our security plan, they have to approve the security plan, and they have to approve all the queuing plans and stuff like that. So it's a process that we have to go through. But Clear is in the process now of moving next to the pre-check line over international terminal. So I think in another week or two, we should have that plan, that move complete.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, I know that we said that HR-related matters have to be done in executive session. And so I think that we have to, with the concerns, Mr. Robinson's coming here every single week for the past couple of months.
So this is what I would ask that we do. We have a motion and a second on this legislative item 16 before us. So it was a motion by Farokhi, second by Lewis. Let's vote on that. And then if we want to move to executive session, we'll motion on that. So open the vote on item 16. Yeah.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable.
Terrific. I'll move that we, Mr. Juan, I'll move that we move into executive session for a quick report from law. We'll meet, if we agree to move into executive session, we'll meet in the committee room over here to my left. Mr. Juan.
Is there a reason we're not doing this at the end of the meeting and going and finishing our legislative items first? That we generally
do that. Yeah.
Let's do that, please.
This is where veteran leadership plays a good role on council. So I will withdraw my motion and let's move on to item 17 and we'll circle back on executive session at the end of the meeting. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 17, 23R3842, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a task order fund an amount of $2,833,333.00 for use under contract as listed herein, planning support services at Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport with RNA TCE joint venture comprised of Recondo and Associates Incorporated and the Creative Eye LLC to provide planning support services for the Department of Aviation on a task order basis. All services will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Bayadari.
This is to add funding for FY24 fiscal year.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Item number 18, 23R3843, a resolution by Councilmember Howard Shook authorizing the mayor as designee to execute an amendment to the project management agreement with Buckhead Community Improvement District for the Wayuka Road Roundabout Project for such amendments to accord with the provisions, qualifications, and performance criteria for the CID procurement contained in the resolution 21R4159, as well as including additional impact fee funding in the amount of $1 million and 0 cents contained in ordinance 22-0-1733. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. This item will need to be substituted to substitute as the account information and also Exhibit A.
Okay, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, council members. Greg Moore, ATL DOT, Deputy Commissioner for Capital Delivery. The department is in support of this for both continued collaboration and teamwork with Buckhead CID.
Great. Motion being substituted forward by Juan, second by Amos. Please open the vote. On the motion to bring the substitute forward. Yeah.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item, the substitute is before you.
Motion to approve on substitute by Juan, second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable on substitute. This takes us to section L, due refer items. We have one, item number 2023-01254, an ordinance by council members Dustin Hillis to adopt the Northwest Atlanta Industrial Aerial Freight Cluster Plan to amend the City of Atlanta 2021 Comprehensive Development Plan to incorporate by reference the Northwest Atlanta Freight Plan and for other purposes. This item was favorable in yesterday's CDHS committee meeting.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Amos. Mr. Hosel.
Thanks,
Did I pronounce that properly?
Close. Nate Hosel, Project Manager, Department of City Planning. This is a ordinance to adopt the Freight ATL Northwest. It was a Atlanta Regional Commission funded freight cluster study. Also, Councilmember Hillis pitched in, as well as Invest Atlanta. Over the past 18 months, we did a lot of community engagement. In fact, I went to all 12 NPUs over the past 2 months and got their full support. By adopting, you're adopting this plan in addition to an early implementation step, which is removing several segments of streets in this study area from the city's truck route network, which would include Ellsworth, Howell Mill areas that are receiving a lot of new types of development inappropriate for trucks cutting through the neighborhoods. So Department of City Planning supports it, and we hope you do too.
Great. Mr. Amos.
Yes, this actually is an ADOT question, because I asked it yesterday, and he said pretty much come to you. With this plan and the way that the state played with the weights of our trucks, increasing the weights, how do we have to adjust this plan when it came to our roads and especially our bridges in this plan?
That is a great question. The impact of that weight change is most likely going to be felt, I would say, between Savannah and Atlanta on the interstate highway system. I don't think you're going to see a lot of trucks of that size and weight. On the local streets, the streets are just too narrow for larger trucks to traverse. But it's also important to note that they operate on what's called the bridge formula. So each axle, and if you look at different size trucks and you count, there are different numbers of axles spaced differently. And they do that to spread out the load that is received on the ground by the weight that's in the truck. So there are some safeguards kind of naturally built in just by virtue of the operation of the trucks, but we don't, right now, we're not anticipating any impact locally.
And I may be incorrect, but I believe my understanding is that there was a carve out for the weight exemption for the metro area for certain cities, but we can ask Law about that later, yeah. So Mr. Lewis.
Yesterday, you gave a presentation. I want to make sure the folks in the Transportation Committee know this was one of the most beautiful presentations in the country about how we can fix some of these issues. And he also said that some of the things he learned from it, he can bring to other parts of the city of Atlanta. And so I'm excited to see this. I hope we keep you for a long time because I'm excited about this. I know that another council member is probably going to make this motion, but I'd love to be the seconder.
There was a motion in a second, and now I forget who. Did I make the motion? And then the second was from Lewis. Okay, I open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. We have one item coming off held. Item number 32, 23R3526, a resolution by Transportation Committee requesting that the Georgia General Assembly and members of the 18th United States Congress pass laws which mandate the maximum length of time that freight trains are allowed to block a grade crossing and other purposes.
I'll move to approve. There's a motion to amend. Do we need to amend the paper?
Yes, the amendment adds another be a further resolve clause and specifies penalties for.
That's what was passed out to us. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll move to amend as suggested. Second by Lewis. Is that Lewis over there? Yeah. Second by Lewis on the motion to amend. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item has been amended.
I'll move to approve as amended. Second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable as amended. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for today.
Great. I want to recognize Ms. Anderson-Bomar. Did you have remarks you wanted to report? Please.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple of quick announcements that I'd like to make. So August the 4th, you'll be receiving, if you haven't already received a save the date announcement, you'll be receiving it shortly. There's going to be a groundbreaking for the Atlanta Beltline Northeast, which includes a portion of the Monroe Drive Complete Streets project, the intersection project, which we've partnered together with ABI to incorporate for efficiency and to get that program started. So please be on the lookout for that groundbreaking. Another exciting moment, and I wish Councilmember Bakhtiari were in the room because she'd be jumping up and down. There will be a ribbon cutting for the beautiful brand-new DeKalb Avenue on August the 21st. So for those of you who want to come be part of that great celebration,
I'd like to point of personal privilege.
Yes, please.
Councilmember's enthusiasm, Councilmember Bakhtiari's enthusiasm for DeKalb Avenue is well noted. I also represent DeKalb Avenue.
Absolutely.
In fact, majority of it.
Apologies.
Yeah. But I, I've been around a lot longer and I'm a bit worn down by the saga of DeKalb Avenue. So a ribbon cutting, fantastic. It should have been 5 years ago, but I'll be there. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
I will not dispute that. We all wish it would have happened sooner, but we're excited that it's here. And the last announcement that I'll make is that, as promised, we're doing regular updates on the Cascade Road Complete Street project, and the next meeting is on September the 7th. Okay, so thank you all.
Thank you. I will move that we go into executive session. There's a second by Juan. And we'll meet I think we'll just probably meet in the committee room over here to the left. We'll need to come back to formally adjourn, is that right? Okay, great. So there's a motion before us enter executive session. Ms. Robinson.
Hi, Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. Just wanted to put on record that if the committee is voting to move into executive session, the reason for this matter would be pending litigation.
Thank you. Everyone vote?
Threatened.
The vote is
litigation.
open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. We are in executive session.
Meeting's not over. They have to come back and adjourn. And I'll wait for you. Go do that. I'll wait for you because I have a question for you about something not on the agenda.
I'm coming to these groundbreakings.
Isn't that exciting?
I'm so
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go to the restroom and then come back instead of going to get stuff.
You go, you do what you need to do. I will wait for you. You take your time.
Yeah, those are great.
I know. Oh my God. It's looking beautiful. You saw that, I don't know if you follow the city's social media. So they had.
No, last time, they play five, best of five.
They play five?
Men are best of five.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I will move to exit executive session. Second by, I don't know, Juan?
Everybody.
Yeah. Please open the vote on the motion to exit executive session.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. We're out of executive
Okay,
session.
that brings us to the end of our meeting. General remarks. I know Ms. Overstreet has something she'd like to say.
I do. Trying to find the details now, Thank you, Chair Faroki. I want to make sure that the public is aware of the passing of Marvin Arrington Sr., and he was a political giant as well as a community leader and servant for many years. So as such, he has several tributes, and he will be lying in state here at the City of Atlanta in his own chamber that's named for him, our council chamber, and that is going to happen on Thursday, July 27, 2023, at the Marvin Arrington Senior Council Chambers. From 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., he will be lying in state, and 12 noon, we will have tributes. The Wake in the Family Hour will be at Big Bethel AME Church, at Auburn Avenue, 6 to 8 p.m. And there are there are several other opportunities for everyone to pay respects to the late Marvin Arrington Sr. But do join us at City Hall in his chamber on Thursday, the 27th. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the public, I'll note that we are headed into our summer recess on council, and we will convene next on August 7th for a full council meeting again. So thank you all.